children of Israel. Every place that the sole of thy foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even until the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, unto the great sea toward the going down of the sun, shall be your coast. Just for a moment, a thought for today. A prepared place for unprepared people. A prepared place for an unprepared people. When I was young, my mother and father didn't have a lot. And I can remember being about 10 years old, and my parents bought for the family their first living room set of furniture. Their first dining table for the family to eat off of. And I can remember my sisters and my brother being excited, those who were born at the time, because so long we had visited other people and they had furniture, but we hadn't had the opportunity to enjoy that in our own homes. But there was a catch. The catch was that my mother and father had plastic paper put on it, and we couldn't sit on it. There was a room that was set up that looked really, really good, that had brand new furniture in it, but we couldn't sit on it. There was a table that was bought that had chairs around it, but we didn't eat at that table. At the time, I didn't really understand the whole concept of having and not using. Now, I understand that a lot of you all, and most of you all, are a whole lot better off than what we were. And you experienced all that from birth. I had not that opportunity. And so therefore, what my parents were doing was taking children that didn't have before and teaching them how to have. Because without being taught on how to have, we would treat it just like we did the other old furniture, the other old chairs. We jump on it, bounce on it, play on it, come in outside and dive into it, come in outside without taking your whole bath and dirty it up. But what our parents was doing for us is teaching us that there are certain things that are special. Sometimes we have to be trained and taught how to appreciate the blessings which God gives us. Y'all looking at me strange. A person will pray to God for a job, get the job, and not respond to God for the job. He has to be trained, taught that God was the one that woke him up to go to the job. God was the one that gave him strength enough to do the job. God was the one that supplied him with the energy to last on the job. God was the one that provided the method of transportation to get to the job, whether it was walking or riding. God supplied it. And so what God is saying to us is that all he wants us to do is appreciate that which he has done for us and to us. It's possible for an individual to be prepared for a place, but it's easier to prepare a place for an individual than it is to prepare that individual for the place. Because being able to enjoy the place is a condition of mind to be able to sustain yourself while you're there. So many times we find that even in our city and our local government will build apartment houses and place entire communities in those houses. And without giving the community the proper instructions or changing of mind, it won't be long before that particular place of residence become just like the place in which they left. Yeah, it's easier to prepare a place than it is to prepare a people. People's minds have to be changed. People have to be conditioned as to how to live in a certain place, a certain way. Now, the place will be new, but if the mindset is the same, the place will turn into the same place that the people left. People have to change their minds. God here taken a people out of captivity. That were in captivity over 400 years. And over 400 years of being in captivity, these particular people had become like the people that had held them captive. They were similar to the Egyptians in every way. They called on the name of God, but they didn't really trust in the God of creation. They called on the name of God, but they didn't really respond to the God who rescued them. What are you saying, preacher? What I'm saying is, when you read Exodus, you'll find that it wasn't real long before the children of Egypt, the children of Israel, turned and became just like the children of Egypt. You remember when Moses went up into the mountain, stayed there for 40 days. About 40 days too long for people that didn't trust God. And it said that when Moses came down out of the mountain, it said that Aaron had been influenced by the crowd to take the gold pieces that they had gathered from the Egyptians and made a golden calf that they could worship something that they see. The Egyptians worship images. The Israelites were supposed to be worshipers of the God of creation, but they desired something that they could see. They had to have a change of mind. On a journey that left out of Egypt, that should have taken about 11 days, wind up taking them about 40 years to complete because of the condition of their minds. Now, Canaan was already prepared for them. God had already informed them that Canaan was a place that was flowing with milk and honey. But the Israelites hadn't gotten able to understand how to worship a true and living God. So therefore their minds had to be changed. People change places, but places don't change people. People change where they live, but they take who they are where they live. People change places. I'll say that again. But places don't change people. You can take a pig out of the hog pen, but you can't take the hog pen smell away from the pig, because the pig is the reason why the hog pen smell. And wherever the pig goes, smells just like the pig. They say that you can take a pig, wash him up, put a ribbon on him, but at the end of the day, he's still gonna smell just like a pig. Why? Because that's his nature. So wherever he or she goes, gonna smell like they are. What we're saying is, what I'm saying is, the place don't change you, which means that you can change your residence, you can change your address, but the change of you takes the change of heart. The mind change is a choice. In order for your mind to change, it's a choice. That's why Jesus told his followers through Paul, he began to let them know that I've learned to be content. That's what Paul told his followers. And whatever condition I'm in, I've learned how to be content. How did I get there, Pastor? I'm glad you asked. Because my mind changed. That's why Jesus told, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Therefore, when Joshua began to take over the children of Israel, we find in Deuteronomy that Moses died. We find that after the death of Moses, God had already assigned a leader. And that leader was Joshua. God spoke to Joshua in the first chapter of Joshua. Joshua name means Savior. See, the thing that what he's telling us is that I have sent you a Savior. I have given you all that you need. Joshua is spoken to by God, and God began to tell Joshua in the first chapter of the book after his name, I'll be with you. For most of us that follow him, that's all we need. I don't have to have any money because he said he would be with me. I don't have to have good health because he said he would be with me. I don't have to have followers because he said he would be with me. And greater is he that's with me than he that's in the world. And so therefore, I understand what Joshua was saying, or how he understood the fact that I'll be with you no matter where it is that you go. Joshua had to learn that. Here's how Joshua learned that. Joshua learned that from being following after Moses. Now, do you understand that Joshua was Moses' minister? In other words, he was one that served under Moses. And so he watched how God led Moses. He watched how God gave him instructions. He watched how God instructed Moses how to instruct the children of Israel. And he watched how Moses was obedient unto God. He watched how the faith that Moses had in following God kept growing and growing. So therefore, what Joshua understood was that if he was that way with Moses, therefore I have to trust that he'll be the same way with me. So therefore, what Joshua understood was that after the death of Moses, God's minister, his servant, Joshua took command. And because God told Joshua was, I'll be with you. Now, I understand that for those who don't trust God, that's a very difficult thing to see. That's a very, very difficult thing to understand, because we can look at the negative perspective. The negative is that we watched how the people rebelled against Moses. We watched how his brother and sister turned their back on him. We watched how the people wanted to stone Moses and Aaron. We watched how the people time and time again wanted to start following their own leader. We watched how the people began to tell Moses we were better off in Egypt. We watched how the people began to tell Moses that when we were in Egypt, at least we had fish, pickles, cucumbers, links. We watched how the people told Moses that there was enough grain in Egypt, we could have died there. But Joshua didn't follow God because based on the things that the people did to Moses. Joshua followed God based on how Moses responded to what the people did to him. Moses kept on worshiping God. And so therefore, when Moses got to the Red Sea and he had no place else to go, Joshua watched how God led him across the Red Sea. Now, for most of us, that's just a ditch or a small river. But I understand the Red Sea is a Red Sea. So therefore, what scientists have said that it took about 4 hours to cross over. In order for all those people to cross over, it took about 4 hours. But the waters had walled up on both sides, and the people walked across on dry land. Joshua got to see how Moses stood there with his rod, and the east wind began to, y'all ain't saying what I'm saying. See, the east wind began to blow. And as the east wind began to blow, God dried up the Red Sea, while the children of Israel walked across on dry land. Joshua got the opportunity to see how the Egyptians who were following them, how when they got into the Red Sea, how the water enclosed in on them. And all of those individuals that came in from Egypt, that were part of the Egyptians, the chariots, the horses, and the foot soldiers, all died in the Red Sea. Joshua got the opportunity to see how, but he was fighting in the valley, and Moses was praying on the hill. I'm so glad that God got somebody praying for me. Look, even as I pray for others, God got somebody praying for. Aren't you glad that God got somebody praying for you while you in your valley? I'm talking about your low esteem, your low place. God got somebody in a high place praying for you. And it said that, watch this, Moses told his servants, he said, get a pen, a note, and write this down so that Joshua will know. See, sometimes we think that our healings and our blessings come through the medicine. Sometimes we think that our blessings come through our jobs. Sometimes we think our deliverance come from the army protecting us. But God is saying to you, write this down, because the way that you got through what you were going through was me. The reason why you were protected from all the enemies around you was me. I'm just trying to get y'all to a prepared place for unprepared people. The children of Israel were unprepared for the blessing. So many times in our lives, the reason why we hadn't gotten where we know we should be yet is because the condition of our minds hadn't changed. the condition of our minds hadn't caught up with the blessing that God had prepared for us. And so what God does is God puts us in a place where we go through different things, where we learn how to do different things, and watch this, and worshiping him and trusting him, so that when we get to our blessings don't take us away from him. Don't you understand that there is no blessing that should take us away from God? Y'all missed that. Watch this, okay? In order for grass to live, it must be planted and living in soil, in the earth. In order for fish to live, they must abide in the sea or in water to survive. In order for a Christian to live, in order for man to live, she must be hooked up with God. Take a grass out of the ground and it'll die. Take a fish out of water and it won't live. Take a man away from God and he'll die. We must be hooked up to our Savior. So therefore, what God told Joshua was this: watch this, arise. And then what he watched this, don't just get up. Once you get up and you get well, then go. Watch this, over this Jordan. In other words, the task is bigger than just you. You and all these people are gonna go. And watch this, I want you to understand that when God delivers you, he don't deliver you for you. He delivers you for the people around you. Your children, your wife, your cousin, your sisters, your brothers, your friends, your co-workers should be delivered because of you. You be a living example of who God is in you. That's what he told Joshua right there in the first chapter. He said, go over this Jordan, you and all these people. In other words, this is not just for you. So many times, God will bless us, and we'll keep the blessing and smother the blessing because we won't help anybody else. Listen, the reason why God supplied you of all those hours on your job, because somebody next to you needs to be blessed. Your church needs to be blessed. Your connection needs to be blessed. And so what God did was, they prayed for God to bless them. God gave you more hours. You missed it, didn't you? They prayed for God to deliver them. God gave them more hours. Somebody said, what sense did that make? They prayed for God to bless them. God gave you more responsibility. They prayed for God to deliver them. God gave you their deliverance. Somebody said, well, if they prayed, perhaps God's always blessing them. What God is doing is he's causing him to do what he wants, what God has assigned him to do in his ministry, and they cause him to do what God has called him to do in his ministry. So whereby they both can meet in the middle and